Welcome to the Mitchell Center for Sustainability Solutions. This is our Sustainability Talk series. My name is David Hart. I'm the director here. It's great to have you all with us. And I don't just mean the audience in the room, but also our Zoom audience. Much better. So now it's my pleasure to welcome today's speaker, Charlie Howe. I actually met Charlie back in 2018, along with Adam Dagnall and Linda Stoka. We were invited up to the North Woods to meet with members of the staff and board of Butler Conservation, an extraordinary organization which was created an amazing network of parks on 2 continents, including Penobscot River trails on the East Branch of the Penobscot. And even though Penobscot River Trails wasn't yet open to the public, they were already hard at work on another extraordinary park on the shores of Cobscourt Bay. You'll hear more about both of those. My wife Irene and I have now explored both parks on many occasions, whether by skiing, biking, hiking, or kayaking. And we've got lots more exploring to do thanks to people like Charlie. And one of the fascinating things about Charlie is the way he has drawn upon his early training in environmental science and biology at Allegheny College, where one of his professors was a dear friend of mine, Scott, to become such an able practitioner in building both literally and figuratively sustainable connections between society and nature. And because I got a sneak peek at Charlie's slides, I can promise you you're in for a visual treat. Please join me in welcoming Charlie for the next.
Thank you, David. The parks by their nature are beautiful, which leaves a lot of visual materials for a presentation like this. Today we'll consider how human beings personally interact with nature and how, despite all advances in technology, spending time in nature continues to be essential for human health and well-being. My presentation has 3 parts. First, we'll consider the body of research that describes how spending time in nature improves human health and well-being. Secondly, we'll look at trends in the amount of time and how North Americans interact with nature. To illustrate these trends, I'll describe the land use history of one of Cobscourt Shore's parklands in Down East, Maine, Race Point Park. Finally, I'll describe Butler Conservation's efforts to build new outdoor recreation facilities for public use. I find this research in why we as humans benefit from time in nature, motivating and inspiring, and I'm glad to be able to share this today. Thank you to the Mitchell Center and Butler Conservation for this opportunity to be here with you all. Before I begin, a brief introduction to Butler Conservation. Butler Conservation is a charitable foundation founded in 2005 by Gilbert Butler, the organization's president. The foundation has a 3-part mission: to connect people with nature, to be good stewards, and to inspire stewardship of the natural environment, and to promote aerobic recreation. Over time, the foundation's methods developed to become what you see here. 1, to create parks that celebrate inspiring landscapes. Since 2011, the foundation has created 8 important parks and trail networks, sometimes on land purchased and owned privately, sometimes with partner conservation groups. 2, to provide family-friendly outdoor recreation activities accessible to a wide cross-section of the public. This means that you shouldn't have to be an expert hiker, paddler, or skier to enjoy these trails. All abilities are welcome. 3, to offer guided outdoor programming to school children. We have programs in 6 parks, and last year with these programs, we reached 20,000 student visits. And 4, to highlight the rich natural and cultural histories of these landscapes, to allow visitors the chance to know them in a more meaningful way. These are the 8 parks where we work. The Black River Environmental Improvement Association in New York State, on the Tug Hill Plateau west of the Adirondacks. Penobscot River Trails here in Maine, along 8 miles of the East Branch of the Penobscot River. Cobscook Shores Park System in Cobscook Bay in Down East Maine. And the Black River Cypress Preserve in the cypress tupelo swamps of the Black River in South Carolina. And parks where we've partnered with other landowners, like the River to Ridge Trail in the Shawangunk region of the Hudson Valley, Patagonia National Park and Perito Moreno National Park in the Patagonia region of Chile and Argentina. And most recently, Islas y Canales Verdes del Rio Uruguay, on a series of islands in the Uruguay River on the border of Argentina and Uruguay. These are very focused initiatives focused on outdoor recreation, yet we believe that these efforts have the potential for broader impacts in the health and well-being of individuals, reducing some of the negative afflictions that have accompanied modern lifestyle, like attention deficit, isolation, loneliness, or impulsive behavior, but also increasing physical health and stamina, and encouraging local investment by improving quality of life. How we spend our free time is important. Beginning in the late 70s, 80s, and 90s, and then with greater frequency in the 2000s, researchers began to look at the potential effects of a wide variety of human-nature interactions and their effects on well-being. Nature views out of hospital windows were shown to speed up recovery, gardening shown to provide psychological benefits, therapeutic camping programs were shown to improve addiction recovery performance, and wilderness hikes were shown to increase problem-solving ability and memory. Research evaluated a wide range of human interactions with nature, sometimes describing just interactions with other non-domestic or domestic species, like gardening or playing with a pet, or other times more immersive wilderness environments, like multi-day backpacking trips. An image began to emerge of broad benefits that we gain from nature interaction. In 2013, Kenninger and colleagues summarized this body of research in the International Journal of Environmental Research and Public Health. Kenninger identified 5 groups of benefits: psychological well-being, cognitive function, physiological function, social interaction, spiritual well-being, and tangible or material aspects. This is a summary table from that article. And I won't go through all of these, but it's worth pointing out a few of the benefits that have seen the most research attention, like increased self-esteem from nature with 3 published studies, or attentional restoration with 5 published studies, or stress reduction with another 3 studies specifically looking at this. From this body of research, we also begin to understand the qualities of a natural environment as opposed to the built environment, and how these qualities benefit humans. Natural environments are generally rich in gentle stimuli, sounds, sights, smells, and free from shocking stimuli and interruptions. As a 2012 study, Creativity in the Wild, Improving Creative Reasoning Through Immersion in Natural Settings describes, our modern society is filled with sudden events: sirens, horns, ringing phones, alarms, television, etc., that hijack attention. By contrast, natural environments are associated with a gentle, soft fascination, allowing the executive attentional system to replenish. Essentially, nature provides a rich and interesting environment without the stresses that might trigger fight or flight and leave our mind and body in an agitated state. Time in nature reduces stress compounds like cortisol in the body. Other promising areas of research include the nuances of how different qualities of ecosystems and environments impact us, and how these impacts differ by culture. Or, in another example, the importance of childhood nature experiences, the so-called moments of awe, as defining moments in development. Luis Chala looked at how conservation professionals were attracted to their fields, often due to nature experiences in childhood, and as a poetic way of describing formative childhood events that lead to conservation ethic in adulthood. She writes, "These ecstatic moments are radioactive jewels buried within us, emitting energy across the years of our lives." These interactions between our environment and our bodies and minds are an incredibly rich area which links evolutionary biology, psychology, and sociology. This information can also inform how we shape our built environments to live more fulfilling lives. Just one example is how we look at smell. For years, humans and other primates have been regarded as primarily optical animals, with highly developed powers of vision, but with a relatively undeveloped sense of smell. However, in comparison with our visual and auditory system, the olfactory system has many more connections to the parts of the brain where emotions are regulated. Smell is hardwired to feelings of pleasure, memories, and our mood. Even the mention of pleasant smells, like the sweet smell of pine needles in a forest, or the salty smell of sea air, can improve our mood. You could say that healthy humans are genetically predisposed to be at ease in natural environments. Yet, as Richard Louv popularized in his 2005 book, Last Child in the Woods, humans spend less time now in natural environments than ever before in our history. Louv famously compared health benefits of nature interaction, like improved attention spans, to modern challenges like attention deficit disorder in a society that spends less time in nature. After the publication of Last Child in the Woods, several studies using various data sets supported this hypothesis that society spends less time in nature, believed to be the result of urbanization and the built environment, cultural and family dynamics, and the prevalence of digital entertainment. Long-term shifts in economy, production, and land use have reduced interaction for the last 2 centuries. At the same time, most nature interactions have shifted in character from a material interaction to a recreational and often appreciative interaction. As an example of changing land use over time, we'll look at Cobscook Shore's Race Point Parkland in Cobscook Bay. The name Cobscook is from Passamaquoddy, Capscook, meaning place where the water looks like it is boiling. And nowhere is this more evident than the reversing falls between Crow's Neck and Layton Neck. Reversing Falls has been for millennia a place where the Passamaquoddy community harvests clams, mussels, urchins, and barnacles. Nearly all aspects of this life tie back to the environment: material, social, and spiritual. Crow's Neck, which falls in the town of Trescott, was organized in 1827. In the first record of European settlement we found at this particular location is in 1839, when the residents of Crow's Neck petitioned the county commissioner for a road to connect their community with the town of Lubeck. They write, "The subscribers, inhabitants of the town of Trescott and Lubeck in said county, Washington County, respectfully represent that a road is much wanted leading from the shore near Alpheus Kenny's house in Trescott to a point in the county road near Moses Tucker's house in Lubeck, that there are about 50 families whose trade in the winter season is principally at this village in Lubeck, who now have no means by any properly located way of getting to said village, and who would be accommodated by such a road." Prior to building this road, which was constructed, residents traveled by boat to Lubeck, and there are still remnants of cedar posts from a wharf and cellar holes near Kelly Point. Here, with the first European settlement, we see a strong material connection with the landscape. As agriculturalists and homesteaders, they made a living using tides for navigation and fishing. This is a population that would have spent their days outdoors and been closely attuned to the seasons, weather, and wildlife. Trescott deorganized in 1945. We know from our neighbors that the land at this time was still predominantly pasture. The next record we have of land use at Race Point was in 1993 when Maine IFW, Inland Fisheries and Wildlife, acquired Race Point as bald eagle habitat using funds provided with the North American Wetland Act. At this time, Quoddy Regional Land Trust acquired a conservation easement on the surrounding parcels. In 2016, Cobscook Shores acquired the two shorefront parcels, making up current Race Point Park. At this time, neighbors still maintain ski trails in this patchwork of meadow and forest. We see here a site-specific example of a lifestyle shift that is not uncommon, in which less people produce from the land, and now rewilded areas are a growing center for recreation. The nation as a whole shows similar trends. Here we use agricultural labor as a proxy for material interaction with nature, and rural population as another proxy. In 200 years, about 10 generations, the United States has gone from being a predominantly rural and agricultural society to being an urban one. At the same time, we see an effort to conserve wild areas, and we spend our recreational time in these environments. In 1872, Yellowstone National Park is formed. In 1903, Teddy Roosevelt visits Yosemite with John Muir. In 1916, the National Park Service is established. Now, if we look at per capita use of public land as a proxy for outdoor recreation, we see use of state parks, national parks, and national forests surge between 1950 and 1960, and then reach a peak in the 1980s before declining. This data is from a study by Parklands and Zeredics from 2007, which looks at per capita visitation to public lands. Parklands and Zeredics' article, Evidence for a Fundamental and Pervasive Shift Away from Nature-Based Recreation, published by the National Academy of Science, raised a sense of urgency and gave credence to the arguments made by Last Child in the Woods, and also gave interesting information about how preferences for nature-based recreation were changing. Camping, hunting, and fishing which drove the growth of visitation in the 50s and 60s, were in decline. And we see rapid growth of nature photography and, in general, an increase in so-called nature appreciation activities, like viewing birds and wildlife, learning about nature, and hiking. Later studies showed similar trends. For example, in 2011, Sikimaki, using a different large data set of time surveys, shows declines beginning in 1975 through 1993, and then staying level from 1993 to 2003. Perhaps the clearest reporting on outdoor recreation participation begins in 2007 with the Outdoor Industry Association's Outdoor Participation Trends Report, which provides the percentage of the United States population participating in outdoor activities and what activities they're participating in. Starting in 2017, we see new growth in outdoor recreation. Outdoor participation grows from a stable 49% of the population up to 55% by 2022, with substantial growth in diversity, including age and ethnic or racial diversity. Kids and older Americans grew the most, as did Hispanic participants during this time. In terms of sales, the outdoor recreation industry reported growth averaging 6.7% per year from 2018 through 2023, with a market jump from 2020 to 2021. During this time frame, the outdoor recreation sector outpaces the larger U.S. economy. So what we see here is we know that people turned outside as a result of the pandemic, but with this data, both sales and the outdoor industry's participation trends shows us is that this trend actually began in 2017 and was well underway by the time the pandemic affected us. According to these surveys, hiking is the most popular outdoor activity, followed by running, bicycling, fishing, and camping. And camping is considered a high crossover activity, meaning that many outdoor recreation participants start with camping and then get interested in other activities. We see here a renewed interest in nature interactions with appreciative qualities. Participants are more representative of broader society than ever and are in the outdoors to appreciate nature and for fitness. Yet making outdoor recreation and nature interaction part of our lives requires not only opportunities like parks, but also orientation. Orientation refers both to whether nature interests you, but also, is there someone to get you interested and to guide you in outdoor activities? This diagram begins with these two components, opportunity and orientation, and shows that if these components are lacking, it can lead to feedback loops where we spend less and less time in nature. The authors write, the loss of direct interaction with nature during childhood can lead to a health and developmental issues such as depression and attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, the so-called nature deficit disorder. Second, reduced direct experience with nature can also decrease positive attitudes towards nature, including the desire to engage with it, and reduce support for pro-nature policies in childhood and later in life. The early nature experience hypothesis. This suggests a feedback loop in which the consequences of reduced experience with nature during childhood can lead to further disaffection and apathy towards nature. Yet we would argue that the opposite is also true. If you provide children with opportunities and orientation, it can lead to improved health and well-being and encourage more nature interaction. This is why we try to make our facilities accessible for people without a lot of experience and easy for families. In this final section, I'll describe some strategies we use in developing parks and trail networks. I have tried to highlight a bright spot in this recent story of nature interactions, the growth of nature appreciation activities. But of course, experiencing moments of awe in nature is something innate, and we see examples of this throughout human history. Our attraction to long views, to rivers, to lakes, to waterfalls, and the coast. I like this term hunting the picturesque, which refers to a process of landscape painters in the 19th century to locate compositions for their artwork. They would head out to places like the Hudson Valley, the Maine coast, or the Lake District in England, looking for especially compelling scenery. They would then depict these scenes to create powerful images that they would take back to the gallery or to their patrons. In trying to create a rewarding park experience that will connect visitors with the landscape, we also try to find these especially compelling sites. We follow a process well known in trail building. I'll give a brief overview, and you can always find more information through the Professional Trail Builders Association or American Trails. The process begins with a thorough reconnaissance of an area to identify and map what are called positive control points and negative control points. Examples of positive control points are long views, like this view of the Long Island Passage from the eastern tip of Red Point Island at Cobscook Shores, or sheltered areas out of the wind, interesting rock outcrops, or specimen trees. Negative control points might include sensitive ecosystems like wetlands, hazards like cliffs or slippery surfaces, or what we call eye catchers, man-made structures, buildings, vehicles, or other anthropogenic features that might interrupt otherwise natural stimuli. After establishing positive and negative control points, we begin to link the positive control points with a route, which we refine over multiple iterations and with greater precision. We do this respecting sustainable trail guidelines, like limiting the slope, avoiding trail routes up and down fall line, building with a side slope, and so on. At this time, we consider types of trail based on the size of the parcel, use, and most appropriate activities. We locate a visitor reception area, trailhead with parking lot, with information to orient the visitor and describe the natural and cultural history of the area. And always, when possible, we include a bathroom because, especially for first-time visitors and families, this can make the difference between a long, relaxed visit and a short one. As important as engaging activities are moments of rest. These are examples of rest locations where visitors might have lunch or in some case spend the night. We choose durable materials that reference the local environment or vernacular architecture. Rest locations should be spaced far enough apart that they provide a destination, but close enough that they are reachable. We use rest locations in tandem with signage to guide visitors, highlighting special views and to serve as destinations along the way. We employ a range of trail structures based on the characteristics of the local environment, type of use, available materials, and importantly, maintenance expectations. And I'll end with a collection of photos from our parks that describe the types of experiences visitors might find there. Here Here we have visitors paddling the east branch of the Penobscot River at Penobscot River Trails, or hiking across the intertidal area from Red Point Island to Red Point at the Copscook Shores Park System. An orientation activity for first-time canoeists at Penobscot River Trails, biking the Riverside Trail, also at Penobscot River Trails, the Kayak for Schools program on the Uruguay River, and a grand binational regatta for kayakers that assemble from the Uruguayan coast and the Argentine coast. Students hike along the edge of the cypress and tupelo swamps, crossing sloughs here in the Black River Cypress Preserve, or paddling the Black River of New York State at the Black River Environmental Improvement Association, the Brea Park System. A cycling class, also at the Brea Park System, and a rainy day nature walk. A long distance hike at the Perito Moreno Trekking Network in Patagonia, and a backcountry hut where you can stay the night, a distant view of glaciers. Also incorporating 4-season activities with a outdoor education program, skiing course at the Copscook Shores Park System on the Hardscrabble River, and similarly skiing at Penobscot River Trails. And again, Penobscot River Trails with Mount Katahdin in the background. This is the end of my slideshow. Thank you for your attention. Please support trails and outdoor programs. Let's all help orient others to the out of doors. Thank you.
Just, Linda, let me just do a quick thing here.
Sure.
I'll do questions in the room. Linda will help facilitate the chat. I think I'll let her go first. When it's time in the room, and if we run out of time, happy to connect you. I will bring the microphone to you because it works a little better than relying on the ceiling mics. Linda, your turn.
Okay, can you hear me?
That.
Great. The first thing that we want to say is we all want to follow you around. This was just so amazing. And to be able to go to those places that you have these pictures of and that you've been doing this important work in is just profoundly exciting and really, really interesting. One of the things that people are taking away from your great talk is the ways you've woven in research and the importance of research in terms of kind of getting a sense of where things have been and where we can go to. And when you think of the students that are in the room and on a chat, are there things that you think students should be thinking about so that their work, their research could be helpful to this important work that you're doing?
Yes, of course. I think it's these intersections of biology, psychology, and sociology that are very rich. So I would, and also history. So I think being curious and when you feel strongly about something or have a hunch, trying to find what literature is out there on that subject is very important. And I think that's how we came across these articles.
Are there ways that we could be helpful? I mean, one of the things that was really terrific is you had examples of studies on psychological well-being and cognition and physiology and spiritual issues. And are there ways that we could step up to you and say, gee, I'm about ready to do a thesis or a dissertation, and I want it not to just be in a journal. I want it to make a difference to you. Would you have thoughts for us?
Yeah, certainly. We always need data. It allows us to reflect on what we're doing effectively and what we're not, what we could be doing better. It could be interesting to know. Um, we know that student experiences in these outdoor programs are positive. Teachers tell us, for instance, this is the fifth time my students have been skiing with you. They're getting really good. We think this is something that they're going to continue doing. But certainly to have a quantitative assessment of that would be one thing. We have a lot of very interesting properties that have rich history. As time goes by, we get deeper and deeper. But a more in-depth focus on that would be extremely helpful. And then there's these ripple effect impact, which we believe our parks are having and will continue to have over time. But there's increasing quality of life, bringing in investment, whether it's in houses or hospitality. It would also be interesting to see if data supports that.
Linda, can I take a turn here for a
You
second?
sure can, yes.
Thank you very much. I wanted to ask, it's hard to talk about recreation in Maine without addressing the National Park Service sized elephant in the room. When you're designing your parks, I mean, Acadia is what, the second or third most visited national park in the United States of America. And Maine residents are not the main beneficiaries of that or the main supporters of that. Most of those are people coming from either out of the country or lower down in the eastern seaboard. So when you're designing your parks, in my personal experience with your parks, I love Penobscot River trails. I've noticed that a lot of the residents are from Maine. Mainers typically go there or to Baxter or to some of the other state parks in the area. Do you take into account different things when deciding or when designing parks that will likely be used by residents of the area, especially when it comes to like accessibility? I mean, Penobscot River Trails is great, but if you don't have a car, you can't get there. So I was wondering what kind of factors you take into account as opposed to like the National Park Service, which may have more resources, but also a much greater expected visitor count.
Yeah. In the program study, well, in general, I highlighted how per capita visitation is going down or has been going down, went down from the 70s to the 90s, remained stable. But it's important to remember that the absolute number of visitors to national parks especially has not gone down. It maintained flat, and then when there was renewed interest, peaked like we've never seen before. So we do have certainly overcrowding there. I think that if our approach is unique, it is that we want these parks to be not automobile-based tourism, even though you may have to drive there, but you leave your vehicle at the entrance, and it is human-powered activity. And I think that that might be the biggest distinguishing feature between many of them have popular parks and what we're offering.
Linda, we're closing in on 4 o'clock. Do you have something you want to do? I can hold my question because I can ask Charlie later.
One last thing. And that is, you did such a good job of giving us a sense of how modern life, everything's kind of broken into little pieces. And in the, when we're in the built environment, and that it's very different when you're in nature. If you were giving your talk, this great talk that you just gave now, out in one of your parks, how would it have been different, and how might we have responded differently?
Well, I would have been more relaxed to start with. The social benefits of I mean, the research shows that the social benefits of time in nature are people are less guarded, they're more opening, and I think conversation flows a lot easier. I think all the benefits and what we would experience if we were out in the park, having those smells and those gentle sounds, is that the formality would drop off. And there would be more of a, I think, genuine experience. Not to say the fish walking this was great, but
Thank
that
you.
much
Thank
better.
you for your response. Great. David,
Yeah,
back
so-
to you.
Yeah, well, I think I'll draw things to a close here. Again, I have quite a few things I'm looking forward to talking to Charlie about. If there are people in the room who have questions you didn't get asked, come on up. But let's take a moment to once again thank Charlie for a wonderful.
Oh, thank you.